They literally make the stuff of dreams for all to see, yet they themselves are living in a nightmare. I'm, of course, talking about animators. While I myself am no animator, my longest running friend, who is an aspiring animator with a foot in the business, and I myself, spending much of my life watching cartoons, I wish to talk today about the topic of why animators should be compensated for meeting their expectations, given reasonable working conditions across the board, and bring awareness to the abuse animators endure. It's all about the money for some, and passion cannot pay bills nor feed you. So one must ask, do you abandon your passion to provide yourself a better standard of living, or does one tough it out and hope that their ambitions will bear fruit one day? A New York Times article followed a man of an animator named Tetsuya Atsuko, who was working on multiple high-end animation studios while also working on flagship series. And he only takes home about $4,000 a month as of February 2021. Did I forget to mention that he's referred as a Genga man, whose key job is to make the illustrations that the animators make them come to life. He also occasionally directs. The crazy thing is, Mr. Atsuko is considered one of the lucky ones. Thousands of lower-run illustrators do grueling piecework for as little as $200 a month. Rather than rewarding them, the industry's explosive growth has only widened the gap between the profits they help generate and the paltry wages. And as if that wasn't demoralizing enough, there's even a lower rung of Japanese animators in the industry called a Douga man. And they only make about a yearly salary of $12,000 a year. And it's not that much different on the West as it is in the East. For the West has their own non-exclusive issues with the VFX department, otherwise known as visual effects. And they also share the same abuse and uncompensated pay. What part made you cry? This question is something you would ask something about maybe a movie, or a labor-intensive task, or maybe something as beautiful as to akin to a wedding day. You wouldn't think we were talking about a day in the office. VFX artists work in studios that are commissioned out by corporations who are all trying to save a dollar. So what happens when multiple studios vie for the biggest and largest product? The answer is the lowest bidder wins. The Gizmodo states that in order to work for Marvel or any of the 5 or so production companies out there that are offering the big budget VFX work that keeps the VFX studios afloat, studios continuously underbid each other in order to appeal to decreasing small client base. Needless to say, this race to the bottom is a catch-22 for most individual artists. In tandem to getting the big lucrative gig from the big company with an outstanding VFX demand, you do the work maybe 3 times over. And chances are that the big companies having an actor debacle or numerous reshoots for some reason outside of the studio's control, that 3 times work over is also now compensated, and yet all the work for about maybe half the pay of the original bidder. And yet VFX artists can get their whole studio blacklisted for speaking out. So up until now, I discussed how the higher-ups apply the stress on the animators and VFX artists. Yet, substantive pressures are not the only accounts for the abuse. At times, it can be the emotional damage that breaks a man. According to The Guardian, these insane workloads that companies contract upon their studios under deadlines that other contractual arrangements in other industries would lose that company a business partner. Imagine a construction company and you're contracted for an 8-story parking garage. Then out of nowhere, your contractor decides that they want to change their mind and want a 6-story spa resort instead. No compensation whatsoever to the work already provided. That's the everyday dread of artists. This pressure can lead to the studio heads caving in and vent their frustration at their subordinates, who probably had no premeditation to be a jerk that day. But when millions of dollars get swept under the rug at the whim's notice, tensions do run high, and not everyone has the mental fortitude to cope without lashing out at others. To quote an anonymous source from The Guardian, because again, blacklisting, the average artist doesn't even have any contact with the clients. It's really just the people at the producer and supervisor levels, and then they pass it on to their crew. So it could say, oh, the supervisors are the real bully, but actually it's a knock-on effect. It starts with the people up top and trickles down. And the leaders, some just can't handle it. In the end, end up being bullies. This is the human effect of all the unfairness and that has accumulated over the decades. The system just doesn't know how to fix all the problems all at once. I have to thank you for your time in hearing about the gross underpay, to the ridiculous working conditions, to the assault on the mental state of our artists, whose sole passion is to bridge the human imagination to the reality ever so seamlessly. So, there's little for much of us to do on the outside to affect the industry so tight-knit and practically unseen as animators and VFX studios. But making some noise wherever you can, and or whenever you can give a voice to those who are just not able to simply speak their voice without consequence. And I'd like to show you a brief run-in of what brief workload and quality that animators do provide. Want to bring it up a little closer so you can see? Thank you very much. All right, you can stop.